Jai Hind and good evening, my friends. This is Wing Commander Jaidev Desai once again talking to you on through my channel Jaidev Desai. I am thankful to all of you who have liked my videos, shared my videos, and subscribed my videos. I've got very positive, motivating comments from you, and also certain suggestion to how I can improve my videos, and I'm thankful to all of you for that. In recent, in couple of days, I got also request from you about the topics on which I should talk and topics which I should cover and topics you would like me to cover. In that, Article 370 and 35A was a main request. I think that is because the movie Kashmir Files speak about Article 370 and 35A. And my previous videos, 3 videos I made on after I saw Kashmir Files, in that also I am talking about Article 370 and 35A. When I was thinking about speaking on Article 370, 35A, I thought of widening the scope of these videos. And I thought of making videos or series of videos on internal security matters the country is facing today. 370 and 35A, as mentioned in the Kashmir Files, also in my earlier videos, is one of the major cause of militancy and other ills of J&K state. We will discuss that. But that is not the only challenge the country faces in internal security front. There are many more challenges the country faces. I have listed about 7 topics, main topics, which I would like to speak on. First, of course, is 370 and 35A, on which I'll be making 2 videos. First video is today, and I'll be talking about 370 and 35A. The second is the Northeast issues. Northeast has gone through a very long duration of violence and thing like that, and internal security issues arising because of that we must discuss. What is happening in the country cannot be understood if we don't know two nation theory and Ghazwa-e-Hind. So that third topic I've taken as two nation theory and Ghazwa-e-Hind. Fourth, of course, is a Naxalite movement, very well spread in eastern part of the country and central east part of the country. Urban Naxals. How these urban Naxals helping all this or enhancing the internal security issues and favoring the actors of these internal security problems. That also we must discuss, and that is my fifth topic. Current trends and current happening, what we saw in last 1 or 2 years, that is anti-CAA movement, anti-farm law movement, hijab movement recently, then halal issues, and many more like this. And I think that as my sixth topic I'll be discussing. And seventh is arising from the current geopolitical situation, how that is going to affect the internal security and our Atmanirbharta in defense. That also I think I should discuss. And these 7 topics I've identified. If you have anything else to add, or in this listed 7 topics, if you want me specifically to cover certain part of it, please do let me know. Put it in the comment of this video, or you can contact me directly. I'll be putting my email ID as well as my mobile number in the description of this video, and you can use them. Now, this is in this series of this internal security, this is my first video, and as I said, then first video I'll be talking about 370 and 35A. As I mentioned, that 370 and 35A I would be discussing in 2 parts. This being the first part. In this first part, I'll be talking about the historical background, how and why this Article 370 and 35A were inserted in Constitution, and what are these articles. In part 2, I'll be talking about the effects of these articles and how these articles were removed or from the Constitution. And at the end, in the second part, I'll be talking about the current status of J&K, that is after removal of Article 370 and 35A. Actually, the word removal of 370 is not correct. It's the abrogation of 370 because 370 still exists as such in our Constitution. To talk about the historical background of these two articles, I think it's very important to start and to understand the, as I said, historical background. And here I would like to start from 1930s. In 1930s, Sheikh Abdullah, who was friend of Jawaharlal Nehru, finished his MSc from Aligarh Muslim University and came back to Kashmir. As you know, Aligarh Muslim University was a mother of two-nation theory. We'll be talking about two-nation theory later, but the mother of two-nation theory and Janak of the partition of India. And he had come from that background. As he came to Kashmir and started understanding the situation of Kashmir, and because what he learned and what he saw in AMU, he started his own movement in Kashmir. Now but he was a very great orator, no doubt about that. And that attracted a lot of people, and slowly people started joining him. And de facto, he became a leader of Kashmiri people. Of course, he kept himself away from Jinnah. But in his all talk, action, agenda, Islam, Quran, Masjid, and these topics were the central part of his speeches and his action, and also, of course, agenda. Though he pretended to be secular, but very cleverly he camouflaged his communal agenda and projected his Andolan or that movement as if he is fighting against the monarchy. And he doesn't want king to be there, and he wants democracy to be established in J&K. And this also made many Hindus or Kashmiri Pandits also to join him. In 1944, he came out with a document called Naya Kashmir. And he also established his political party called National Conference. It was earlier called JKNC, that is Jammu and Kashmir National Conference. Now this document, Naya Kashmir, was basically cut and paste of Constitution of Russia of Stalin of 1936. Now Urdu version of this particular document was called Tehreek-e-Hurriyat-e-Kashmiri. It did talk about Kashmir to be a welfare state. And so, as far as India was concerned, it was ahead of its time. And all this effort of his actually impressed Nehru. He was a good friend, but he got impressed by all his action. And Nehru then started trusting him more and more. But Raja Hari Singh actually took this as a threat for himself, because his Andolan actually became Quit Kashmir movement, and he wanted Hari Singh to quit Kashmir. And that is why he arrested Sheikh Abdullah in May 1946 and sentenced him to 3 years of jail. During that time, as all of us know, that on 15th August 1947, India got freedom. Why India Independence Act? India was partitioned in India and Pakistan. And cleverly, Britishers handed over all the states which were ruled directly by Britishers to India, but there were 565 princely states which were actually ruled through the rulers of these princely states. And in this Independence Act, this 565 princely states were made free. And they were given three choices. Either they could join India, or they could join Pakistan, or they could remain independent. One more thing which was done at that time and we accepted, unfortunately, was that in Indian Army and Pakistan Army commanders, both commanders were Britishers. And both were reporting to Lord Mountbatten. Now, please remember this because this is going to be very important as we move forward. Because of the brilliant effort and acumen of Sardar Patel with the help of V.P. Menon, we know that India was integrated and all these 565 princely states were basically made to join India. There were few, of course, difficult states like Mysore, Junagadh, Hyderabad and J&K, and maybe few more. In Junagadh, I'm not going into the history and why it happened and all. In 1947, they carried out the plebiscite. And in that voting, 99% of the Junagadh state people voted for India, and only 1% of the people voted for Pakistan, and that is how the Junagadh became part of India. I'm not going to detail of all this, but it is important to note that in few of the cases where few of the states were reluctant to join, and hence strong arm tactics were used. As I said, Junagadh, the plebiscite was carried out. Now at that time, Hari Singh wanted to remain free, independent of Pakistan and India. Because Pakistan, if he joins, then being a Islamic country, he will be removed in any case, or he will have no role to play. He knew that. And if he joins India, then being a democracy, again he will have no role and he will be removed, he will lose his kingdom. So he wanted to be independent and he did not sign either way. But in 20 October 1947, Pakistan attacked India. Pakistan Army, in disguise of civilian dress, with help of Azad Kashmir Fauj, made of tribal Muslims of Waziristan, was made, and they attacked India on 20 October 1947. What happened in that war and all is well known. Again, I am not going into detail because that is not the topic of the day. But it is important to note that they moved very fast towards Srinagar. On 26th, they almost get out Srinagar, and Raja Hari Singh thought that now this is the last day, and reluctantly V.P. Menon made him sign treaty, that is accession treaty. On 27th early morning, Mountbatten also signed, and that is how it became part of India. But it is very important to note that when Pakistan attacked India, Nehru and Patel wanted Indian Army to take action. But Mountbatten refused to allow Indian Army to get involved, saying that Hari Singh has still not acceded to India, and hence it is not part of India, so you cannot go and help the third country. I'm sure he knew the designs of Pakistan because that army also came under him. After the accession treaty was signed, and mind you, these accession treaties of J&K was exactly, I again repeat, exactly the same as what was signed by remaining princely state. So there was no difference. Like many times people say that it's only three things they are talking about given to India: defense, external affairs, and communication. Remaining all were supposed to be part of the princely state. Yes, but that was no special accession treaty was formed or formatted for J&K. Same, exactly the same treaty was signed by Hari Singh. Moment it was signed, again Mountbatten was reluctant to send in Indian army, saying that we are new, our resources are short, we will not be able to do a lot of things and all, and we will have issue. But because of Patel, he was forced to send Indian army, and immediately Indian army was airlifted, and they landed on 27th morning in Srinagar, and rest is the history. We recaptured a lot of area what was basically earlier occupied by Pakistan army, and we were doing quite fine. But in 49 we went to UNSC or the UN, because Nehru had a good faith in UN. So we went to UN asking for the help. But in UN, British and America both voted against India. In UNSC, British and America both voted against India. And isn't that irony that we had the J&K with us by the Treaty of Accession. Pakistan was aggressor, but Sir Britain, Mountbatten was here taking care, in charge of the whole operation in India, voted against India with America. Finally, on 5th January 1949, ceasefire was announced. And in April, I think 21st April, the UNSC resolution came, where they talked about three things. One is that ceasefire, of course, which was announced on 5th of January 1949. And then they talked about three things. Number one, and by the way, during this discussion, India gave a lot of proof, and then Pakistan finally agreed that their actual regular army was fighting in disguise of civilians in India. And hence, Pakistan was declared aggressor. So the first point was that Pakistan army must withdraw and go back to pre-20 October 1947 line. The second point was, once that is done, Indian army should withdraw from J&K. And the third was, once both this also is verified, plebiscite must be organized in J&K to find out the people of J&K want to join Pakistan or India. But because Pakistan did not withdraw and did not go back to 20th October or pre-20th October 1947 line, this particular resolution and plebiscite was never possible, and it was known that it could not have been done as per the UNSC resolution. Now, meantime, Indian Constitution was being formed. Constitution Assembly was formed in India under Ambedkar, Dr. Ambedkar. And in 1950, 26 January, we became Republic. And 1949, 26 November, we adopted the Constitution. By the way, when this Treaty of Accession was signed, Nehru forced Hari Singh to release Sheikh Abdullah from the jail. And yes, I must put it on record that Sheikh Abdullah did help Indian Army in a very big way during this fight against Pakistan. It must be recorded and must be appreciated. And this increased the faith of Nehru in Sheikh Abdullah. You can say that. Now, when this constitution was being formed, Sheikh Abdullah came to Delhi and gave a proposal. Now, because J&K then had become part of India, there are 4 people from J&K, including Sheikh Abdullah, became part of the Constitutional Assembly. And his proposal initially was not accepted by, as I understand, by Dr. Ambedkar or Sardar Patel, because they said that if we accept this particular proposal, it will be not good for the country, and so they were not accepting the proposal. But Nehru wanted this proposal to go through and included in the constitution. So he basically, I won't say blackmail, but basically emotionally spoke to Sardar Patel, and when he was in USA in the state visit, he basically requested Patel to take care of it, and Patel reluctantly agreed. And the proposal then was adopted as Article 306A in draft constitution, and this finally became 370 in the final constitution. But Patel did one more thing. He actually added word temporary in the resolution. And this resolution was put in 370 under section 21, which is basically a temporary and transactional articles were put in that section. And 370 also was put in section 21 as temporary measure. Because after the plebiscite and after all this plebiscite is done, this particular article had no meaning and the article was supposed to be removed. So now here it is important to know what is this Article 370. Now, as I said, I already told you how the Article 370 was introduced in our Constitution. Now, Article 370 has got mainly 3 clauses. That is Article 370.1, 0.2 and 0.3. Point 1 has also got 4 subclauses. I'll briefly discuss with you these clauses. 370.1 says that Article 238 shall not apply to J&K. Now, what is Article 238? 238 was defining the type of states. They had A, B, C, D, 4 type of states, and so he said that this particular article does not apply to J&K. That was put in 370. But for information, in 1956, Wide Amendment 7, this 238 itself was removed. 370.1b, it actually limited the scope and applicability of the Indian Constitution or the Indian state role in J&K. It said that, see, the Constitution lists out union list and concurrent list. And the Treaty of Accession, as I mentioned, there are 3 things they were talked about: the defense, external affairs, and communication was given to the state, and remaining was kept with the princely state. So they said that for these 3 items, all the clauses related to these 3 items of the Constitution will become applicable to J&K. But for rest of it, it will be, for that, concurrence of Constitution Assembly will have to be taken, and then only it can be made applicable by presidential order. And Article 370.1c said that only 2 articles of this Constitution will be made applicable to J&K. For rest, of course, you have to take the concurrence or the recommendation of J&K Assembly. Now, what are the article? Article 1 and Article 370. Article 1 defines Bharat. It says, all of you know, India, that is Bharat. It starts with that. So that article was made applicable to J&K and Article 370. No other article was made applicable. And to make them applicable, this particular other clauses of 370.1 were defined that particular thing. 370.1d says that if you want to make any other article or any other thing applicable to J&K, then presidential order is required, but the order can be issued only by consultation or concurrence of J&K. Without that, presidential order cannot be issued. So by 370.1, it limited the scope of constitution applicability to J&K and also the role of the Indian state in functioning of J&K. 370.2 says that applicability of all the articles will be placed in front of the Constitutional Assembly of J&K and it will be passed, and then only it will be made applicable. 370.3, because it was temporary, 370.3 also was formed, where it basically explains how this article can be removed. Because temporary, it says that how the article can be removed, and in that it says that this article can be removed by presidential order, but the order can be issued only after concurrence of or recommendation of the Constitutional Assembly of the J&K. Using this clause, using the same clause, our Home Minister Amit Shah in August 2019 removed this particular 370 article. How it is done and all, that we will see in the next video. As far as 370 is concerned, what about 35A? Now, to understand 35, again we have to know some background history of that. I take you back to 1952. In 1952, Sheikh Abdullah and Government of India signed one agreement called Delhi Agreement. As per the agreement, J&K, Chief Minister of J&K was allowed to be called Prime Minister. A separate flag was given, and also it was agreed that India will not do anything by which demography of the J&K will be disturbed. So these are the main clauses of Delhi Agreement. But in 1953, Sheikh Abdullah said that he cannot now bear Hari Singh. Hari Singh was made actually Sardar-e-Riyasat, that is governor. In 1953, he said that he cannot bear Hari Singh and Hari Singh must go. So it was agreed that his son Karan Singh to become the Sadar-e-Riyasat. So in 1953, Karan Singh took over as the governor of the Sadar-e-Riyasat of J&K. But at that time, Sheikh Abdullah was trying to take best of both worlds, that is Pakistan, India. He started talking to Pakistan, and that Nehru did not like. And in August 1953, J&K government was dismissed, and Sheikh Abdullah was arrested. He was put under house arrest. I think date was August 1953, 9th August 1953. So now the most popular leader is under house arrest. So the Nehru is a prime minister of the country. Karan Singh is a governor of the J&K, and he is taking order from Pandit Nehru or the Indian government as such. In 1951, Constitutional Assembly election were held in J&K. You'll be surprised to note that in the very first election, in the voting list, not a single woman name was added. That means not a single woman could vote in 1951 when the voting for the Constitution Assembly of J&K election was held. In that election, all the seats were won by JKNC, that is National Conference as we know today. Now in this political situation when Sheikh Abdullah is under house arrest, 35A was inserted in constitution. Now, how was it inserted? It was inserted through a presidential order. In that order, 35A is part of that order. It was put under section 21, and you will be surprised to note that section 35 is not printed in any of the copy of the constitution. So if you pick up any book of any copy of the constitution, you will not find 35A. So 35A was actually hidden from the public. I believe the then president, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, refused to sign this. But by emotional blackmailing him and some strong arm tactics worked, and finally he signed this order, presidential order. And that is how 35A was inserted in constitution through backdoor, unofficially, and as per me, it was illegal, because constitution cannot be amended in this way. But anyhow, that is our history. Now, what does the 35A say? 35A talk about mainly three things. Now, you see, Constitution Part 3, if you talk about, it talk about fundamental rights. Article 12 to 35 are listed in that, and Article 35 says that to make fundamental rights applicable and whatever relevant laws to be enacted or rules to be formed, then for that 35 gives the authority to the parliament to enact those acts and form the rules. Now, clause 1 of 35A says that this particular thing will not be applicable. This rule form under part 3 will not be applicable to J&K. So whatever rules and acts made by Parliament of India for ensuring fundamental rights as promised by the Constitution will not or were not applicable in J&K. Second clause talks about the permanent residentship, and that decision is left to J&K. So like all of us staying in other state, we had one citizenship. People staying in J&K had two citizenships, citizenship of India and citizenship of J&K. This was one of the major reason of dissatisfaction and militancy in J&K. And clause 3 spoke about certain special provisions, adhikar, to J&K citizens. It said that like land ownership, only the J&K resident only can have the ownership of the land. Job in the government, reservation, all that were only for the permanent resident of J&K. So if you are not a permanent resident of J&K, even if you are staying for 20 years, you cannot get the job, you cannot own the land, you cannot get the reservation in J&K. Though in other part of the country, you may be, the reservation may be applicable to you. Women who marry outside J&K, who may be permanent resident of J&K, but marry outside J&K, they were not allowed to inherit a property, land and so on. Yes, this particular thing was repealed by High Court of J&K in 2002. But as I am told, unofficially, this was really enforced even till the abrogation and the removal of Article 350. So, we spoke about in this the background of 370, what is Article 370, what is Article 35A, how the Article 35A was introduced in Indian Constitution. Here I end this part 1. In part 2, I will be talking about effect of this 370 and 35A, and how the situation in J&K deteriorated and militancy actually flourished. And what we see in Kashmir file is basically is a after effect of all this. And then how this Article 370 and 35A, Article 370 was abrogated, 35 was removed. And after that, what steps government took and what is the condition today, we'll be talking about in part 2. I hope you like my video, and if you like my video, please do press the like button, please share, and again I request to make your family members and friends and people in your influence, circle of influence, to subscribe my channel Jaydev Desai. Thank you very much. Jai Hind and good night.